Hey guys, Mr. Backberg here. In this video, we're going to look at the signs of our trig functions. So as we're looking at our coordinate grid, we've got 4 different quadrants in here, and depending on what quadrant we're in, that's going to affect the sign of our trig functions, and it's all based on the ordered pairs. In the first quadrant, the x value and the y value are both positive. In the second quadrant, your x value is negative, but your y value is positive. Down in the third quadrant, both x and y are negative. And then down in the fourth quadrant, your x value is positive, but your y value is negative. So as we think about our trig functions, if we think about the sign has been related to the y value. And because the y value in the first quadrant is positive, the sign is going to be positive. If we think about the cosine has dealt with the x value, and that's positive, so the cosine is going to be positive in the first quadrant. And then if we think about the tangent we've been doing y divided by x, so if we take a positive number divided by a positive number, we're going to get a positive answer. Now we've also got those reciprocal trig functions as well, but since the sine is positive, its reciprocal, the cosecant, will also be positive. Because the cosine is positive, that means the secant will be positive, and because the tangent is positive, then the cotangent will also be positive. Now as we move into the second quadrant, some things are going to change. As we think about the sine is still related to the y value, so that's still going to be positive. But as we look at the cosine is related to x, and here we've got a negative x value. So if we're in the second quadrant, we're going to have a negative cosine value. Tangent is y divided by x, so if we take a positive number divided by a negative number, then we're going to get a negative answer. And then we've also got our reciprocals as well. So the sine is positive, so the cosecant will be positive. Cosine is negative, so the secant will be negative. And the tangent is negative, so the cotangent will be negative. Now as we move into the third quadrant, where both x and y are negative, our sine is going to be negative. Our cosine is going to be negative, but our tangent, if we take a negative number divided by a negative number, that's going to give us a positive answer. And then we're going to have matching reciprocal functions as well. So the cosecant will be negative, the secant will be negative, and the cotangent will be positive. And now as we move into the fourth quadrant, now we've got a negative y value, so the sine is going to be negative. The cosine, because the x value is positive, the cosine will be positive. And the tangent, y divided by x, if we take a negative number divided by a positive number, we're going to get a negative answer. And then again, we're going to have our matching reciprocal functions as well. So the cosecant will be negative, the secant will be positive, and the cotangent will be negative. So let's say, for example, we wanted to look at an 87-degree angle. Then if we think about our quadrants, if we're drawing this angle out in standard position, we start along the positive x-axis and we're rotating around counterclockwise. Now 87 degrees is going to land us just short of that 90-degree quadrantal angle. So if we do the sine of this 87-degree angle, we should get a positive answer because sines are positive in the first quadrant. Or if we did the cosine of this 87-degree angle, again, we should get a positive answer because cosines are positive in the first quadrant. And as far as the tangent goes, tangents are also positive in the first quadrant. Now let's say instead we wanted to do a 300-degree angle. Then again, as we're drawing this out in standard position, we're starting along that positive x-axis. That first quadrantal angle is 90, the second one is 180, the third one is 270, so we're a little bit more than that. So we're down here in the fourth quadrant with this 300-degree angle. So our sine of 300 would be a negative answer. Our cosine of 300 would be a positive answer. And our tangent of 300 would be a negative answer. Now we could also do negative angles if we wanted to do a negative 200-degree angle. Remember, negative angles just rotate clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So we're still starting along this positive x-axis, but now we're rotating clockwise around. So this would be a negative 90-degree angle. This would be a negative 180-degree angle. So we're a little bit further than that. So it looks like we're in the second quadrant there. So if we do the sine of our negative 200-degree angle, that's going to be a positive answer. If we do the cosine of a negative 200 degree angle, that's going to be a negative answer. And if we do the tangent of a negative 200 degree angle, that's going to be a negative answer. Now we could also work this in the reverse order. We could be given some information about our trig functions and use that to help us figure out what quadrant we're in. So let's say we were dealing with a positive sine value, so a sine value that was greater than 0, but let's say we also knew that our tangent was a negative value. Well, because we're dealing with a positive sine value, sine is positive in two quadrants, the first quadrant and the second quadrant. Because we've got a negative tangent value, tangent is negative in two quadrants, the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant. If we're looking at the overlap between those, we must be in the second quadrant in order for both of these to be true at the same time. Or if we had a cosine value that was positive and a sine value that was negative. Well, cosine is positive in two quadrants. That's in the first and in the fourth. Sine is negative in two quadrants. That's in the third quadrant and in the fourth quadrant. So in order for both of these to be true at the same time, we must be in the fourth quadrant. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.